Hello, Bowling Park Primary School students. Today we're going to talk about being the best that we can be. As a student at our school, you are well aware that going the extra mile is central to life at Bowling Park Primary. In our school, we work together to make the best progress that we can possibly make. But one of the things that we can do is talk to people in our community who are professionals and are full of wisdom. Let me introduce you to someone special who would like to speak to you and answer some of your questions that some students in our school have sent to him.
Hi, I'm Robert Blum. I am from the United States. Did you want to know where I work?
Yes, I do.
I work at NASA. I'm a contractor with Teledyne Brown Engineering.
What do you do for Teledyne Brown Engineering?
Well, at Johnson Space Center, we train the astronauts to work on all the experiments on the space station and some of the facilities that use those experiments.
What did you want to be when you grew up?
When I grew up, I think I wanted to be a fireman, and I wanted to be an astronaut. I don't want to be an astronaut anymore, but that's one of the things that I did want to do. So what I'm doing now is pretty close to what I wanted to do.
What was your first job?
My very first job, I'm going to pause for a second and let the class think about what my very first job would have been. So, would you guess that I was sweeping the floor in a barber shop? That was my very first job.
Did you like your very first job?
It was very interesting. I worked all by myself. I was given the keys to the shop, and I was only 14 years old.
And what did that help you with?
I had to complete my task within a certain time, so they call it time management.
Did that help you in the job you have now?
Oh, yes, immensely. Like when your teachers tell you to do something and you only have 5 minutes to get it done, but there's a lot of things to do. You may have things that you can complete while you're doing the task that the teacher gave you. So you complete 2 tasks at once, and then you get it done in 5 minutes or so.
What are some other jobs that you've had?
Well, I didn't go directly to NASA. The next job that I had, I was working in the military. And I worked in the military with missiles, kind of like the rockets that you would shoot to space.
Start, 2, 1, booster ignition, and liftoff of the Space Shuttle Discovery, returning to the space station, paving the way for future missions beyond.
Then another job was security, so I worked with classified documents. And I moved to engineering, working on electrical motors that would go into cars that we'd use today.
And how did those jobs help you with the job that you have now?
Everything kind of relates to how you interface with the astronauts. Each astronaut's different, just like when I worked in a job where I actually worked in a restaurant and I had to interface with customers and be polite to the customers. So you have to be polite to your astronauts while you're teaching them.
So how did you get the job at NASA?
So I had to apply for the job, but I did know somebody ahead of time and they contacted me. So as I was saying before, in all the jobs that you're working in, these people remember you later on. So they contacted me and I sent my CV, is what I believe what you call it in the UK, which we call a resume, to NASA and to Teledyne Brown, and they accepted it.
How long have you been working at NASA, and do you enjoy your job?
I enjoy my job immensely. I've had a couple of jobs that I really liked. One was working in the military, and I did that for 20 years, and one working with NASA, and I've done that for 21 years.
What is your favorite thing that you like about this job at NASA?
It's not like any other job in the world. You interface with astronauts that are going to be in space, and they're planning to go to the moon. They're going to go to Mars. I've been able to talk to Elon Musk. Things that I would have never expected that I would be doing when I was sweeping the floors in that barber shop.
So why did you decide to work at NASA?
I'm going to tell you what Scott Kelly, the astronaut, told my granddaughter, Lena, here in the UK when she met him. He said he thought it would be fun, and I do too.
Have you ever been to space?
Now I'm laughing because my wife is in the room, and she said I'm a space cadet. But no, I have never been launched on a rocket. I have actually flown the simulators for the rockets and for the shuttle. I've flown the simulator and landed in California, and one time I crashed in California. So you can come and fly with me. I got a 50% rating.
So can you explain what a simulator is?
So a simulator, if I was flying the shuttle and it was about ready to land, I have to come through the atmosphere, and you'd feel it shaking around, and it'd shake back and forth, and then you'd feel it bounce up and down, and I got to keep it flying straight, and I've got to watch all of my controls and all of my instruments all around me and keep the shuttle coming in. That's what a simulator would do. So the astronauts learn to fly their equipment, like the shuttle, in a simulator or underwater.
So do they use simulators to practice their experiments on the International Space Station?
Yes, we have simulators that we teach the astronauts how to use their experiments on the station. That's one of my prime jobs, and I have several instructors that work for me that also teach the astronauts. One of the experiments was a simulator that simulated gravity. So you have gravity on the moon and Earth and on Mars. We had to spin plants at a certain rate to mimic that gravity so that we could see how they grow. Another experiment would be with water, how it reacts in space.
The question is, if you get a cloth dripping wet without gravity and you wring it out, what's going to happen? What will happen to a wrung out cloth? So, and I had to use equipment that was here on board the space station. We may have the coolest washcloths ever here on the space station. I'm going to show you. Here's one of our washcloths. And it's compacted. It's put down into this little tiny hockey puck so that it saves space. But when you open up a hockey puck and you pull out your washcloth, this is the one I'm going to use for the experiment today. And so when you open up your hockey puck and turn it into a washcloth, it was compressed in a great big vise somewhere. Okay, so here's my washcloth, like a magic trick. And now I'm going to get this soaking wet, and then we're going to see what will happen when we wring it out. Meredith and Kendra suggested that I dip this in a bag, but bags don't hold water in space, so instead I filled a water bag. This has drinking water in it. And I'm going to squirt a bunch of water into this washcloth. Okay, so here's a soaking wet washcloth. Get the microphone so you can hear me while I'm talking. And now let's start wringing it out. It's really wet. It's becoming a tube of water.
So some of the students have asked, what is the funniest moment in your job?
I have a robot at home called Roomba. And the robot called me during my class with the astronaut. And it said, "Help! I'm stuck on a cliff!" So it was gonna fall off a cliff, but I didn't have any cliffs in my house. It actually came up to the edge of the rug and thought it was a cliff. So I laughed so hard when I read that. The astronaut asked, "What did you read?" And I had to tell him. So we both had a really good laugh.
And some of the students have asked if you feel like telling us, what the scariest moment of your job was.
Well, it wasn't directly with my job, but I was following the Red Bull astronaut that went up in a balloon.
It's still climbing, and you'll start be moving here in a little bit once you get a little bit up. Release.
If you're scared and walk away, 'cause there's no need to feel ashamed. Yeah, we all feel the same. Whoa, where's your passion? Where's your fire
All right, now the whole road is looking on. I'm going over. Jumping away.
He jumped out of his balloon. He was up as high as you could take a balloon, and he was coming back through the atmosphere, and they lost contact with him because he was spinning so fast that he went unconscious, and everybody thought that he had died. That was the scariest one.
100 feet fall, speed 729 and decelerating. Showing Felix in a stable descent. And Felix is back to it safely, the new world record holder.
And the saddest one was the Columbia accident. That was on February 1st, 2003. And I knew all of those astronauts when they lost the shuttle.
That must have been really sad.
It was sad.
After that happened, did they find out what went wrong with the space shuttle?
Yes, they did find out what went wrong with the space shuttle. When the space shuttle was launched, a piece of ice came off of the rocket and hit the bottom side of the wing of the space shuttle, and they didn't know that. And when the space shuttle re-entered the atmosphere, the bottom side of the wing peeled off and then destroyed the space shuttle.
Oh, what a disaster.
Yes.
So have they changed things to help the astronauts so maybe something like that doesn't happen again?
Yes, and we don't use the shuttle anymore, but before we changed to a different vehicle, we took a robotic arm and moved the shuttle around in front of the space station so that we could see all sides of the shuttle and make sure that that wouldn't happen again, that there was no damage from the shuttle.
Thank you. We also would like to know who your favorite astronauts were, since you've taught so many. Would you be willing to tell us?
Yes, there are a couple favorite ones, and I like astronauts that play instruments. I believe it was Katie Coleman that plays a flute, and she plays that on the space station.
Great.
Not because she played the flute, she's just a very nice person. And then Chris Hatfield, he's a Canadian astronaut. I liked him a whole lot. He played the guitar on the space station.
For here am I sitting in a tin can, far above the world. Planet Earth is blue, and there's nothing left to do.
Can you describe how an astronaut feels in space?
So, if you've ever been bungee jumping, that's how they feel when they're always falling. The space station is constantly falling, and they reboost it. We don't have them do very much for the first 24 hours because you have to get acclimated to the environment, so your body has to get used to falling. So think if you were on a roller coaster and you couldn't get off the roller coaster and it kept on going down and down and down and down. That's how they feel. And some of them get a little motion sick, but they get over that. It's traveling at 17,000 miles an hour, which is faster than a speeding bullet. You can look up how fast a speeding bullet is and see that it's several times more than that.
Okay. And can you tell us some of the problems that astronauts have when they come back to Earth?
I don't think that this is a term, kind of earth sick, a ground sick. So when they get back, they can still have that same feeling when they get back on the ground, because you even have that when you get on a boat for a long time, and you could get motion sick on the boat, and then when you get back on land, you feel sick again. So it's land sick. So that's one of the things.
So have any astronauts explained some things that they struggle with when they come back other than land sickness?
Yes, TJ Kramer told me one time the hardest thing for him was sitting down, because your joints stretch apart on orbit and you're just floating. When you sleep, you just float.
So all the joints are compacted when you're in gravity, and
Right.
that causes pain.
Sitting on the stool would be the hardest.
Do astronauts forget that there's gravity when they come back on Earth?
Yes. Several astronauts have told me that when you have something in space, like I have here this, and I could just let this go in space and it's still going to be floating around right here. Mm-hmm. And when you get back home and you're used to just letting it go, it sometimes drops.
So have you ever eaten any astronaut food?
I have eaten astronaut food before.
Okay, so which one was your favorite?
My favorite, I guess, would be beef stew. It's in a sealed container, and we have to rehydrate it with water.
To prepare the spinach, you just attach it to the water distributor, choose the right quantity, and push the button.
Now, at times we have freezers on board, and we have little freezers that we can bring up, and they stick ice cream, like chocolate ice cream, in there just for their favorite astronaut, and he gets it or she gets it when they get on board.
So do you have any advice for our students in Bowling Park Primary about how to get a job like what you have, or any job in general?
Yes. Start sweeping the floor in a barbershop. Any job you have to have pride in. And every job that you have builds on the next job. Be friendly to people and keep on gaining more education. Science is very important, and math, computer science, engineering, those are all very important jobs.
Should we be reading even more?
Reading's very, very important, especially if you start a story and you haven't finished it. I do like to study at home also.
What would you recommend that students do if they're struggling?
Talk to your teacher, talk to your counselor, talk to your parents. Don't try to do it all by yourself. If you have a problem, let somebody know, and they're going to guide you in the right direction.
Do astronauts do that?
They let us know when there's a problem, definitely.
And have you had to do that?
I have had to do that also, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a great day.